this thing on? Because it's getting ready to be on.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Bell Ringer. My name is Greg. Your guest name today is Mike Moskal, the CIO of CUBRC, a super interesting technology and engineering company based right here in Buffalo. We talk about how CUBRC has attracted a workforce full of innovative minds, especially those from outside of the region that are relocating for opportunities at CUBRC here in Buffalo. We talk about Mike Moskal's involvement with Tech Buffalo and broader community events, and what makes him optimistic for Buffalo's future. All right, Mike, thank you very much for being with us today. Really appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you, Greg. I'm super glad to be here.
So for the uninitiated, what is CUBRC?
So CUBRC is a not-for-profit research and development corporation that was founded here in Buffalo back in 1983 by the University of Buffalo and the former CalSpan Corporation. Actually, our roots go back to Cornell Aeronautical Laboratories, which takes us as far back as World War II. But we here at CUBRC have three primary business areas. Our legacy area is in aeronautics. We operate here in Buffalo what are arguably the world's most advanced hypersonic test facilities. We can test all kinds of vehicles and other things that travel through the atmosphere, not only our atmosphere, but also the Mars atmosphere from about Mach 5 through about Mach 30, which is the reentry speed of a vehicle that comes back in from outer space into orbit. So those facilities were built here back in the 1950s. They started in the 50s and have been enhanced many, many times over the years. And we're currently in the process of building some new facilities that will allow us to have longer test times and greater capabilities. So it's a big deal. It's about a $50 million investment in Western New York that the DoD, the Department of Defense, is making in these facilities. The other two business areas we have a long history in chemical and biological warfare defense, and I guess want to enhance or express that this is truly a defensive type activity where we're testing suits and boots and decontamination systems and sensors that protect soldiers, protect first responders, those kinds of things. And we do that through a couple of facilities that we have here in Western New York. And then lastly, our information exploitation sector is a sector that has grown up over the last 15 or 20 years now that focuses on developing information systems primarily for the defense community and the intelligence communities. So we're probably among the techiest of the tech companies here in Western New York.
Right. Well, so, through our organization at Invest Buffalo Niagara, a lot of my role is on the Be in Buffalo side, attracting talent to Western New York. So, I think as generations are changing in the workforce, there seems to be even a bigger appetite maybe than ever in individuals really wanting to feel passionate about the work they do and feel fulfilled by it. In what ways you just laid out some incredible work that your organization does, and it's super critical. In what ways does that important work help attract employees to want to work for CUBRC, and, ultimately relocate to Buffalo for those opportunities if they have to be in the office?
Sure. Yeah, it's probably our biggest selling point. The things that we do in virtually every aspect of the business that we're in, whether it's aeronautics, chemical and biological technologies, or in information systems, we're trying to address or solve, I hate to use the word solve, but we're trying to address some of the most challenging problems that our defense and intelligence community are facing at any one time. So whether it's trying to make sure that a vehicle is able to fly at very high speeds and do what it's supposed to do, whether it's a spaceship that's re-entering the atmosphere or a ballistic missile that has a mission, those are incredibly challenging things. So the work that we do and the technology to do is probably our biggest selling point. in attracting people. And we do have to attract from throughout the country. Things are changing a little bit, with the pandemic in terms of, especially in our non-laboratory based operations. When we've got folks in the lab, they need to be here, they need to be working in the workplace. What we found recently, though, is that we're able to attract talent, especially in our information sector, from throughout the country. And I think that's kind of true throughout the industry. There's been a fundamental shift with respect to remote work and things like that. But I would say that of the population of our employees, about 85% are Western New York based or Central New York based, and the remainder are in company locations, but they're scattered kind of throughout the country. And then that remote work concept, or the remote work component, is growing a little bit here and there, but we do focus on having people here in Western New York, because that's our mission. Overall, our mission, our charter under the state, is to provide economic and technological growth in Western New York and New York State. So we need to stick to that and attract the best talent and bring them here to Buffalo.
I think Buffalo's perception has changed so much in a positive direction over the last, however many years. But I think the work that you do helps to battle, whatever remaining like lack of opportunity or lack of innovation type perception that there might be about, a place like Buffalo. So it's the perfect example when you're talking to somebody in a California or in New York, I would move if there was a job that I liked as much. Well, here's this, incredible company that you would feel so fulfilled at.
Yeah, so we're not alone. If I can give you a little bit of history myself, I'm born and raised here in Buffalo. When I graduated from school, I graduated from Buffalo State College back in 1981, and that was the same year that Bethlehem Steel closed its operations here locally, Republic Steel, and that was the biggest component of the kind of the end of big manufacturing here in Western New York. And I was really struggling for a time as to what am I going to do? How am I going to support my family and those kinds of things? And fortunately, I was able to hook on with CalSpan back around that time, a little bit after that time. But I've been here now for 37 years. And one of the things that I vowed, because I'm going to remain here as a Buffalonian, as a Western New Yorker until the very end. And one of the reasons that I got involved with Tech Buffalo is I want to make sure that the next generation, my kids and the kids that follow them, have a good life here in Western New York, and we can improve the life for those that we want to attract here or bring back here. And the changes that we've seen here in Buffalo over the last 15 years have been just tremendous. The growth of downtown, the reinvigoration of downtown, and all the activities surrounding the universities and the colleges is really, really encouraging to me and has transformed our area.
All right. So obviously it's in the charter to, increase the economic outlook for Western New York. As we're talking to companies across the country, as a person leading a company here in Western New York or a part of the leadership team, obviously, what do you think? We talked about the talent, and I'm sure that's a big one, that you can recruit the talent in the workforce. But what do you think are the benefits to operating a company like yours here in Buffalo?
Well, access to the university and the university talent here, and not just UB, but all the schools. That has been a big driver. Economically, it's relatively inexpensive to live here. We have big city amenities without the big city congestion and problems and the likes. And then if you're really into it, we've got the proximity of Toronto and New York City, 6 hours away, whatever. So we're geographically in a location where we can live very well here, and but yet still venture out not too far away and see a lot of different things. Of course, we have Niagara Falls, and so it's just a lot of good reasons to be here. It's a good place to raise your family, and it's a good place to work.
Right. You mentioned in an earlier answer being a founding member of the Tech Buffalo organization. And, you talked eloquently about your love for Western New York and, desire to obviously make it a better place. We've had Sarah Tambacucci on the podcast before, so I don't think we need to do the full, what is Tech Buffalo and all of that. And our listeners can go, listen if they're interested, as they definitely should be. But to you, just, even from a priorities standpoint, why do you think an organization like Tech Buffalo is an important place to kind of, put your efforts, and why will that pay dividends for our community?
Yes, I became involved with Tech Buffalo in the very beginning. Randy Harris and Dwayne Connors, the two founders of Tech Buffalo, approached me to come onto the board. And I did so for a couple of different reasons. One was selfish in the sense that I wanted to be able to make an impact here in Western New York and try to grow the community, the tech community, because as a business leader, as you mentioned earlier before, recruiting and retaining talent here in Western New York is a challenge. And I needed to be more involved in the community, so to speak. And the other was really to raise the visibility of my company. Because of the nature of the work that we do, we're not very visible in the community, and we needed to raise our visibility because we're standing next to companies like Moog or ACV Auctions, or pick a company here in Western New York, and they're gonna. Those are well-recognized names, well-recognized brands, and we needed to increase our visibility and our brand there. So, what's a CUBRC? So, when a young person is trying to make a decision on where they want to work, we needed to do that. So, I've been involved from the very beginning, and really, and we'll probably get into this a little bit later. But Tech Buffalo commissioned a study through the UB Regional Institute this past year that characterized our tech community in terms of, where are we getting talent from? How many jobs do we have to fill? I mean, it was a very broad and wide-ranging thing, and it highlighted a number of different challenges that we have with respect to, retaining the students that we train here, taking advantage of our DEI communities, and making sure that we serve them well. They're largely an untapped resource for tech talent that we need to focus on. So those are the kinds of things that excite me and the primary reason why I'm involved with Tech Buffalo.
Yeah. We mentioned earlier, a bit about how much this Buffalo resurgence has accelerated and been felt. I think you have an interesting vantage point of having led a company, with your involvement through Tech Buffalo, kind of all of these things. How have you seen Buffalo change, Buffalo's innovation economy change? Obviously an increase in the entrepreneurial spirit through, some of the 43 North investments, Launch New York. Just any insight you might have on, this idea of the Buffalo resurgence over, say, 15, 20 years now.
Yeah, so I think a lot of it has to do with raising the excitement level in attracting people to come to this area. It's not only, it's a combination of the economy, the amount of investment that we as a community can put into new businesses that we would like to have locate here. So you mentioned some of the three main. There's also the West New York Impact Fund. There's the Buffalo Angels. So we've got this whole community now of investors that are willing to take chances on these small companies and raise that level of awareness, excitement, whatever. We've had a huge success with ACV Auctions. We have many other smaller successes that we can point to out there. So building that entrepreneurial, attitude almost, and getting away from what I'll call old school Buffalo, down in the doldrums, feeling sorry for ourselves. That's what's changed over the last several years, is that there's that optimism and the knowledge that we have the ability to go out and attract these new opportunities and become one of those. We're never going to be Silicon Valley. We're never going to be Boston. But we can certainly be at the head of some of these mid-sized cities that are using tech as a means for growth. It's our future. I mean, as a society, tech is driving everything virtually at this point, along with manufacturing. I mean, Buffalo Manufacturing Works is another prime example of investments that need to be made to pump up our community, because it all ties together: tech and manufacturing, tech and service industries, whatever it might be.
Right. I think that report you had mentioned earlier looks at some peer cities as well as our labor market assessment through Invest Buffalo Niagara. I think one of them being Indianapolis, which I know was a big inspiration in some parts for Tech Buffalo. So, that combined with, I think there is a desire or a moment for these mid-tier cities right around now, especially after the pandemic, to try and capture, from the Silicon Valleys, New York's, Boston's. I think there's a desire of people to still have the great amenities, but potentially at a lower cost and an easier quality of life. So it's been interesting through that study too, and ours, and just what we anecdotally feel to have that kind of, energy going right now.
Yeah. So what the folks in Indianapolis have been able to do and do a great job of is, and this is over like a 20-year period, but they've been able to pull together their industry, academia, their local officials into a single entity that all collaborate together, as opposed to operating in stovepipes. So, learning from that, Tech Buffalo is really headed toward pulling all of those communities together and then serving that community better as either a catalyst or a connector within the community, so that we can collectively grow the tech marketplace here. There's tons of opportunities. If folks who are listening want to visit the Tech Buffalo website, it's www.techbuffalo.org. There's a link there to the report, and it lays out a pretty sobering picture for us here in Western New York with respect to what the challenges that we're facing in terms of retaining the people that we train here, serving our DEI community and using them as a resource to pump up our tech community, and really just kind of keep up with the rest of the country in our peer cities. Like I said, I don't expect that we're going to compete with New York City or Silicon Valley, but we've got some challenges, and attracting and retaining people is one of our key into tech, whether they're local here or from the outside, is one of our key objectives.
So we just talked about some of what has changed over the last 15, 20 years. I want to end on just this last question. Yourself as a community builder, someone invested in this place, what makes you optimistic for Buffalo's future?
What makes me optimistic about Buffalo's future are the people that are here now working hard to shape that future. I'm privileged to work with a board of directors that are among the most thoughtful and passionate people here in Western New York, with a single focus on building that community. So it's not only them, but what keeps me going is just the energy and the brilliant people that I get to work with along the way here, that are really working hard to build a community. So that's what gives me the I guess confidence that we can do it, and we have the commitment of industry, the state, and other levels of the government to help us get there as well. And I mean that financially. I mean, Tech Buffalo is funded partially by Empire State Development Corporation, also the Wilson Foundation, and we had a big help from the Western New York Impact Investment Fund early on, who helped us get things going. But it's that kind of collaboration and that kind of cooperation that's going to help us going forward, and just bringing the money home. Building great stuff and bringing those dollars here to spread through our economy has really been our focus.
Great. Well, we really appreciate everything that you do, for the community with your company, with your involvement in, different boards and organizations. Before I let you go, we always end on a couple hard-hitting blizzard round questions. So if you were a flavor of ice cream, what would you be?
I'm a purist. I guess I like Cherry Garcia. It's my favorite, so I could associate with that.
It's a good pick. How about a book or TV show that you'd recommend?
I've been binge watching Emily in Paris with my wife, and I think it's pretty good. It's
Okay.
Yeah.
I've heard good things online. Yeah. How about hiking or skiing? Which do you prefer?
I don't do much of either, but if I had a preference, it would be skiing, simply because it's more like ice skating, or it has similar skills are required for that. And I'm not I don't hiking would be fine, but I'm not like a mountain climber guy.
I was at Tech Buffalo's ice skating event yesterday. So timely question.
Right.
How about, do you prefer a text or a phone call?
Depends on the circumstance. If it's really important, I'm on the phone.
Fair. How about Bills or Sabres?
Oh gosh, coming from the fan of the year for the Sabres in 2018, it's the Sabres. But I am a lifelong Bills fan since 1960. I went to games with my dad at War Memorial Stadium in the late 60s, watched O.J. Simpson and Dennis Shaw and all those guys. So it's a hard pick, but I have a Sabres problem.
And how about, last question, most important, chicken wings? Do you prefer a drumstick or a flat?
I'm a drumstick guy.
Me as well.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Greg, thank you. I appreciate doing it. And I can't express more my enthusiasm for what you guys are doing over and being in Buffalo. It's awesome stuff. And just thank you guys.